My name is Esa Salminen. I work in ViKES as a press officer. I've been here for about 6 months or so. Before that, I'm an anthropologist originally by profession, but I've been working with development and communications in some other NGOs before. And including having spent 5 years in Africa myself, I was working in Zambia and Mozambique already a few years back.
When you open ViKES webpage in English, you read that ViKES is devoted to supporting freedom of expression where it's threatened. My name is Thierry Francis Mbabane, and Esa is here today to help us with more insight about ViKES.
ViKES is a foundation founded in 2005 by Finnish journalist associations and journalists' unions, because there are several Finnish NGOs who deal with human rights and development, but there was not really an organization who would concentrate on the work with press and press freedom and rights of journalists. So the Finnish Union of Journalists and others decided that they wanted to contribute to this work and have a foundation of their own. So it's a way of channeling Finnish journalists' expertise and ideas and also funds to help and support the work of colleagues in other countries.
To help and support work of journalists is not an easy job in today's world. The recent 2017 World Press Freedom Index, produced by Reporters Without Borders, indicates an alarming state of press freedom in even democratic countries. According to Reporters Without Borders, media freedom is proving to be increasingly fragile in democracies as well. In sickening statements, draconian laws, conflict of interest, and even the use of physical violence, democratic governments are trampling on a freedom that should, in principle, be one of their leading performance indicators.
Yeah, it is very worrisome, as you say, and not only in East Africa or African countries, but also in Europe. We've seen very alarming developments in Poland or Hungary, and in a very small scale also in Finland, that the press freedom is being encroached in many countries, and democracy is not really doing that well. So, and unfortunately at the same time, funds for development projects like ViKES's projects are declining. So it's sort of harming us in many fronts. But what we try to do is to widen a bit our sources of income, and we've slowly scaling up our projects. And what ViKES does is we have projects in 4 continents, always with local journalist unions or other organizations who are of journalists, and we support different projects. Many times it's education, training for journalists, or support for investigative organizations who do better quality media work in their respective countries, and also support projects for rights of journalists so that they can do more independent and quality work. At the moment, we don't really have to reduce our present activities. Last year, when the Finnish government cut their development spending quite drastically, there were 3 country programs that didn't get any more funding, so that was very sad, and we had to reduce activities there, namely in the Caucasus region, Palestine and Tanzania. But at the moment, we are quite okay in terms of activities, and we are happy that we can implement our programs quite all right at the moment. We are still searching for more funding for these scaled down programs and countries. But in the present programs, we're mostly concentrating on implementation at the moment.
In the span of just a year, the number of countries where the state of media is considered good or fairly good has fallen by 2.3%, according to Reporters Without Borders. Countries regarded as model democracies are no exceptions. Media freedom's erosion is particularly visible in the European democracies. Even the Nordic top performers that have traditionally headed the index have dropped a few places. 3 in the case of Netherlands, and 2 in the case of Finland, which has lost number 1 position for the first time in 6 years. As regards the indicator of the overall level of media freedom violations in a region, Europe continues to have the lowest. That is best indicator, but it has risen significantly by 17.5% in 5 years. In comparison, the Asia-Pacific region's indicator rose by only 0.9% in the same period. The decline in respect for media freedom in democracies is not new. It was already noticeable in previous indexes, but what is striking in this year's index is the scale and the nature of the violations seen. Now that we talk about it, we are wondering if ViKES still have potential to handle the situation.
Yes, we have potential to achieve our goals, but of course we do not pretend that Finland is a small country and ViKES is not a huge organization. So alone we can never achieve press freedom in all the world, or even in these countries where we work. The challenges and problems are so huge. I think it's a continuous process, and we can achieve big steps, but it's something that we alone can never achieve, I think.
ViKES works for freedom of expression in places where the need is pressing and this right is under duress. It assists organizations, communities, and individuals in activities to defend and realize freedom of expression in practical ways. But how does ViKES select its target groups?
We do it together with our local partners, the local journalist NGOs or unions. In Somalia's case, for example, we have the local union and also the national broadcasting company. So typically the local partners would identify the people most in need and the most pressing problems, and then we would discuss them together and see what are the means that would best suit these kind of problems. Like there's a community local radio that we support in Tanzania, and they go to villages, they choose where they go and they see which communities are the most vulnerable. And then we usually trust their judgment in that, of course.
Do you have maybe putting different people in quarters or into groups and say maybe these must be targeted, like women or...
in some cases, yes. Yeah. Women is a good example because in many of these countries, women are quite underrepresented in media. In the project in Somalia, for example, women journalists are a specific target group that we try to bring more actively into the trainings because otherwise the media field is very male dominated, and maybe we wouldn't get many female participants if we didn't actively search for them.
in many of the countries in which ViKES works, the lack of basic skills among journalists, together with a poor understanding of journalistic rules and ethics, are the main obstacles to freedom of expression. Apart from providing professional training and basic skills, ViKES trainings bring journalists together and promote networking among them. ViKES also trains other people in the media field, including filmmakers and communications professionals and even state officials. Where and what kind of project ViKES has around the world?
We have, if we start geographically from the west, there's a regional program in Central America. That is, the main partner is in Nicaragua, but the activities are regional. So there was recently a forum in El Salvador that's supporting investigative quality journalism in the region. Then in Africa, presently we have 2 countries where we operate, theoretically 3, but let's get to that. There's training for environmental journalism in Nigeria, and then in Somalia there's an ongoing project that started with building up a TV studio for the Somali National Television, and now it's advanced to trainings of journalists and civil servants and even law enforcement. Trainings on journalist rights and security and quality journalism and these kind of things. Then the third project in Africa at the moment is in Tanzania, in Mtwara region. There's a local radio station that we've helped to build up and train the journalists. At the moment, unfortunately, we haven't received any finances for that because of the Finnish government's decision to cut down on development. We have gotten some donations from our member association, so we've been able to support them in smaller ways, and we are presently seeking for funds, so we are hoping to scale up again that cooperation. Then going towards Asia, there's we're supporting investigative and digital journalism in Nepal, and then lastly there's Myanmar, where we are supporting a local documentary film school, Yangon Film School. And the fourth continent obviously is Europe, where we do have some activities here in Finland as well. We're training Finnish journalists, and we are cooperating in a couple of regional journalist training programs with the Baltic countries and some Central Eastern European countries. And now we're also helping to celebrate the Finland's 100th anniversary as well. We opened this year a blog where Finnish journalists meditate and write about the different aspects of press freedom in Finland. Well, there's a couple of very concrete things going on this year, for example. We conducted last month a training for journalism students and journalists who are just starting out their careers, a 3-day course in development and international affairs. We brought in trainers from a little bit from abroad and very experienced journalists from Finland. By the participants, it was judged a very, very successful and meaningful training for them. So we want to get the new generation of Finnish journalists to be more aware of global interdependencies and development issues in general. And we are repeating the training in September. The target group will be more experienced journalists with maybe a bit more than 5 years of experience in the field. So we get a bit different lecturers and a little bit different themes for people who are already better equipped or have longer experience in the journalist field. That's one big activity we're doing this year in Finland. The other one is the blog that I mentioned. We have now 5 outside journalists who are contributing. It started with Rauli Virtanen, a very senior, very great foreign correspondent. Maybe today or tomorrow publishing a text by Koko Hubara, who's a blogger and a journalist who has talked a lot about how media in Finland tends to be quite white, and that is now diversifying to include journalists and and audiences that are not stereotypically Finnish in the way that we used to think of Finland as very white and homogenic country. Then there will be 3 more writers in the fall. Hanna Nikkanen, an investigative journalist, Riku Rantala, who is a TV personality journalist, and Janne Virkkunen, the former editor-in-chief of Helsingin Sanomat. They will contribute from different angles. We've heard from the field that the numbers that we've been training journalists are quite nice. There are hundreds of journalists in each country of operation, and the feedback we get from them is very positive, that they appreciate and they feel that they have better tools to conduct their work. If I take an example from Somalia, I was talking to our coordinator the other day, and he said that the fact that the war is less is of course positive, but it's still hard to talk about democracy as such. But he has seen that during the maybe 5 years of operation, the quality of media in Somalia has enhanced a lot. It's not, of course, only ViKES's work. It's a big thanks to the local Somali union of journalists and, of course, other partners that they may have. But definitely, ViKES's job is part of that.
That's one way. It's getting it from people you are training.
Sure.
So other ways that you can evaluate exactly your work would be?
Qualitative analysis, of course, difficult, but you can try to analyze the quality if you look at stories or the quality of journalism take maybe 10 years ago and today. You can try to evaluate if there's any enhancement. So that's sort of a more kind of objective way, I guess, of looking at it. And theoretically, you could look at statistics if journalists are more safe or if they have trouble in security issues and such things. But the impact chain is so large that you can't really say that if the security situation of journalists is enhancing or not. It doesn't really have to do much with ViKES because there's so many other factors, starting from politics in the country and economical developments and all these things. So in development sense, it's sometimes very difficult to point to the reasons that why something is happening. But definitely you can see that media quality is enhancing, at least in some of the countries.
And so far, if you look at the whole activities in that way, what is the most achieved project for ViKES?
That's also because they're very different. There's a documentary film school in Myanmar, which is very interesting because the country is just opening up to democratic values, and there's a lot of enthusiasm with young and older documentary students. But also the long participation and cooperation we've had in Tanzania has been very, very fruitful. There's the radio station in southern Tanzania in Mtwara region, reaches millions of listeners. But then also we support investigative journalism in Nepal and Central America, that are very different regions and different political situations. There's also very positive sides. And in Somalia, because it's so challenging place for journalists, and there's not been much journalist trainings done in Somalia, then the impact there is maybe bigger compared to countries like Nicaragua, where there's journalist universities have been working. So it's very difficult to compare which is best. They are very exciting in their own ways.
ViKES activities will be our subject also in the next program. We'll talk more about what ViKES has done within the 17 years of working. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.